Good morning. Good morning. I hope you are well. Today, I am going to go straight into the last part of the topic for week 1, which is assessing and managing risk in public places. And I'm hoping that it's not going to take too long. It will literally be about 10 to 15 minutes, unless if anyone wants to add something, or you want to come live and talk to me and share anything that you would like. Right, so I'm just going to go straight ahead, and now I'm talking about the final part where there are issues, the risk to others, there are issues in management for others. And although I did mention unpredictable behaviors in the earlier part, where someone with autism, a child, or even an individual or an adult, they could hit others, they could do something that's unpredictable that could put someone else at risk. But then I want to concentrate on the carer, the mother, the father, the parent of the child, or the person looking after the individual with autism. So I will use the term parents or caregivers interchangeably, okay? Or it doesn't necessarily mean it's just the parents, it's just the person who is basically responsible, or the guardian for the individual with autism. Okay, so when you're going out in public, this issue is never really talked about. And today, I am going to talk about the complexities that are involved whenever you want to take your child out. So mind you, autism varies. It's not the same for everybody. So I'm particularly talking about the cases where there are difficulties when it comes to taking the individual out in the public. I know some people may not have problems, may not have issues in that area, but there are the other side where people have challenges when it comes to taking your children out into the public spaces. And there's a lot of emotional work involved for the parent, where the parent has to conduct themselves in a certain way, because they are going out into a public space. They are trying to make sure that, when they go out into a public space, they're going to reduce the discomfort that other people have. They're going to try their very best to make sure that there are no problems, when they go out into the public space. So basically, the role of the parents here, or the caregiver, is emotional management. So that will be the first point. There's a lot of emotional management involved. And please share your experiences in the comment section if you are happy to do so. What is your experience? Do you have challenges when you take your child into a public space? If you're happy to share that on the chat space there, please go ahead and do that. So when we're talking about emotional management, we are talking about trying to control your emotions. I will use an example of myself. Every time I have a lot of challenges when it involves taking my autistic 17-year-old out into a public domain, because obviously there are many things to consider. If you watch the first part of this this topic, you will see that a lot of those things are all the preparations that you have to put in place just to go out into the public space. So it can be very exhausting, if you know what I'm saying. It's not easy. And the thing is, how often will you take your child out, meaning you have to do those preparations every single time, you see. There's the issue of the fact that autism is sometimes it's not visible. So people who don't know you or your child, they won't know that they'll just think everything is ordinary, and they won't be able to tell. So sometimes when they have that unexpected behavior, for example, maybe your child does something unpredictable, it kind of catches them off guard. They were not expecting this, so you start having the glares, the stares, people starting to like, oh, what's happening here, you see. So I'm talking about the emotional management. Yeah, so sometimes as parents, we are forced to mask our emotions. Sometimes you become really stressed when you go out, but then you have to force yourself to just act like everything is fine. You know, you can manage, you push yourself, you keep going forward. Okay. In society, like every society has certain rules of conduct. When you go out in public, every society, you know, they have a certain way that they expect you to behave. And normally, if someone behaves in a different way, it's either you're not from that place, or like, don't you know how you're supposed to behave in public? You know, it's like society kind of controls the way people are supposed to behave. So basically, society is not structured. Sometimes it's not structured in a way that caters for our autistic children, or the different behaviors that they may present from time to time in a public space. You see, so sometimes if they come and they start doing something that's not acceptable, because when we talk about autism, sometimes we're talking about unacceptable behaviors, or behaviors that are socially, yeah, that's the word, socially unacceptable. So sometimes these behaviors are frowned up, you know, people don't like those behaviors, and they don't expect those behaviors. But sometimes because of the invisibility of autism, oh yeah, sorry, my video is sideways because I'm using my phone. I'm sorry. Yeah, what it is, I'm using my phone. I have to post that on YouTube. So if I post it, if I, you know, use the portrait way, then it doesn't come out properly when I then upload it onto YouTube. Is it possible to just turn your phone sideways, if that's okay? Yeah, but if you use your computer or laptop, it will show the portrait way, if that's okay. But thank you for tuning in. Okay. Okay, I'll try on the next video to use my laptop instead, and then I won't have to turn it sideways. So please forgive me just for today. Thank you. Thanks. Okay. Right, so I'm talking about society's expectations when it comes to the behavior, the rule of behavior. So in Zimbabwean society, people will expect you to behave in a certain way in a public space. In the United Kingdom society, it's the same. I mean, in every society, they kind of the norm how to behave in a public space. So sometimes our children may not behave in that, you know, that rule. They might not, you know, you know what I mean. So it's kind of, it makes it very difficult for the parent or the caregiver in the public space. So I think one of these papers I was reading, they talk about people becoming like a surveillance. They become like a CCTV for who's behaving, who's not behaving. You know, it's kind of like you end up feeling that way. I think it resonates with me. Like sometimes you do feel like, I do feel like people are just like surveilling, like, they're watching me. I better make sure that my child is behaving properly. I better make sure she doesn't do this. I better make sure she just doesn't do something that, you know, that will make everybody start looking, like, you see. I don't know if you, maybe you feel the same way, or something like that happens to you as well. It would be nice if you just let me know. I know sometimes our children start running around, screaming. There's a term that is used by this guy called, this lady actually, Sarah Ryan. She calls it soft criminality. Soft criminality. So it's kind of like you know, when you go out in public, sometimes when your child breaks the rules, like this is the way, the conduct of behavior, it's kind of like people tend to judge you. People tend to like, oh, you broke the rules. You know, you're a little criminal, you know. Well, it feels that way sometimes, but it's just to make people aware that you have to expect something. I mean, don't, just to kind of make people more aware and more tolerant, rather than to just think if someone breaks the rules of society, you know, of behavior, then they're like little criminals, you know, and it's not nice. Okay, so I'm just going to refer quickly to my notes. Yeah, I mean, how do you deal with you know, how do you deal with people looking at you when, let's say, for example, your child breaks down in public, your child has a meltdown in public? I'd be interested to find out how you know, what do you do in that situation? Living in Zimbabwe, living in any part of the world, maybe in a different African country, or anywhere you live, I'd be interested in knowing what your experiences are. So if you want to join this chat, or if you want to you know, just comment now or later on, that's also fine. Okay. And because I'm not taking too long today, so I'm just literally just brushing through here. We're just talking about the emotional management that the parents have to, you know, to undergo. Another thing that's not really mentioned is children's behavior in a public space is often seen as a reflection on the received competence of their parent. So sometimes you, as the parent, are judged for the way your child behaves. And unfortunately, there are many, like from a previous research I did, based for African countries, including Zimbabwe, many parents are judged. Many parents of autistic children are actually judged when their children misbehave, or when their children behave differently, you know, in the unacceptable ways. They're judged as bad parents. And sometimes these judgments are not just from strangers. These judgments are coming from even distant, close family members or extended family members. They're just judging based on, like, you don't know how to discipline your children. You're bad parents. Then the labels are coming. Bad parents, incompetent parents, I don't know what the other labels. You're not smacking your child. That's a common one. You're not, give your child to me, bring your child to me, I will put them in shape. This happens a lot, especially in the African families. The smacking, you know, that's a common thing. But that's not what treats autism. It doesn't treat autism. You see, autism is about understanding what the characteristics of your child, and then addressing it through the different ways, the different interventions, the different tactics that you can use to address those particular, you know, behaviors. But then, unfortunately, we have the people who believe in the one method, the only method, the smacking. But that's incorrect, and I want to discourage that when it comes to autistic children. That is not even the way. You misunderstanding the child, and you're not even going to address any behavior or any, you know, you're not really going to solve anything doing that. Yes, so sometimes in a public space, as parents, we are forced to become the good parents. We have to, like, show them. When people start staring, like, in the back of our mind, we're thinking, maybe they're judging us, we're not doing anything. So let me just act like I'm able to manage the situation. And I'm like, start telling my child of, like, don't do that, stop it. No, don't give it to me. You know, you're trying to make yourself look like a good parent. So this is all pressure psychologically. This is now pressure coming on you, on me. Like, I don't want people to, you know, I don't want people to be judging me. So let me just try my best. I'll grab the hand, you know, stop, put it back, don't take this, you know. And all this is going on in your mind. I hope I'm making sense. So there is pressure for the parent when you go out in public, especially from psychologically, and when you're kind of responding to the looks, you're responding to the rules of society, like you don't want to break the rules. So, and you're worried about what other people think as well. I don't know, does this happen to you as well? I'd be interested to know if this is happening, if this happens to you often. And then, sorry, I'm just checking the other point. Yeah, so there is a shift of behavior when we are in a public space. So I think we are kind of shaped by who is around. We kind of become very aware. Every time we go out, we're always looking who's around, just in case this happens, just in case that happens. So if there's no one around, sometimes it's like, we're not really bothered. But then when the more people are around, we kind of like try to like shape up, try to make sure that nothing's going to go wrong. Our child's going to behave in a certain way, according to the rules of society. How often do you ever feel embarrassment? Do you often feel, what are the emotions that you feel when you go out in a public space sometimes, or when sometimes your child starts to misbehave in a public space? What are the emotions that you feel? I'd be interested in knowing those as well. The issue of stigma. This one, this one is a big one. This one is everywhere. It doesn't matter where you live in the world. Stigma is just a thing when it comes to autistic children. Stigma is a big issue. I did mention about parents being seen in a negative light. I'm not going to repeat those labels. I'm not going to have to go back through that. Or being seen as incompetent. I think I already mentioned that. So stigma is something that I think for stigma to be addressed, people have to become more aware of autism. That's what I can think from the back of my head. That's the best way to combat stigma. Unless people know what autism is, unless we make a lot of noise, unless we make ourselves heard, people are just going to continue to have those prejudices, to just think that these incompetent parents, something is wrong with them. Sorry, I'm just going to pick one point that I forgot to mention. In the African community, witchcraft, some people think that your child was bewitched. This is a common one. Some people think that. And sometimes it even goes to the extent of, I don't want my child to play with your child. Don't go to their house. These are real cases. I've actually, in previous years, these are things that actually do happen. And not just in Zimbabwe, but unfortunately throughout Africa. I don't want much, and actually it's actually worse in Africa, because in the United Kingdom, people don't really think about the whole like witchcraft, like, someone bewitched my child. But in Africa, it's actually serious. It's actually serious. People actually think someone bewitched your child, and they actually go to the extent that, I do not want you to go to their house. I do not want you to play with her child. It's so sad, but these are some of the things that come into that emotional management. Us as parents, sometimes, are you able to even make friends? Do you have friends? Sometimes you feel like people judge you, and you distance yourself. Making friends becomes a bit difficult, because you think people are just judging you, and sometimes you're just worried about your child may behave when you go to your friend's house. I've gone to, I've had situations where family members refused for me to take my child to their house. Family members. I'm not even talking about friends, but family members to that extent, like, you cannot come to my house. I'm sorry, but your child. So it's sad, but it's real. And how do you deal with those situations? It's not easy. Sometimes you're just like, but what can you do? And then sometimes you also know your child, like my 17-year-old, if sometimes I visited a relative and she starts to misbehave in the relative's house, and then obviously it's going to be an uncomfortable situation, and then you feel like, no, I don't want to do this. I don't want to have to put my relative through this, and neither do I want to have this issue with my child. And then you just stop going, just using avoidance to sort of resolve that situation. What was she doing? She was just going to the kitchen, opening the fridge, taking whatever she wants, and you can't do that. You can't keep going and taking, and she just keep going and taking, going and taking, going and taking. You can't keep doing that in someone's house. So how do I manage that situation in my property? I'll discuss this in the next topic, where I'm assessing and managing risk in the home, but I'll just briefly make just a quick a quick point. What I did, I had to buy a locker where I can lock in food, the snacks, the things that she likes. I lock them in there, take the key off, and that's how we've been managing and it's working actually, because you can actually buy food in bulk and save. But if you have a kitchen lockable, anyway, we'll discuss this one in the managing risk at home. So that's the topic for the next week. Okay, so right, where am I? Invisible right, sorry, yeah, okay. So yeah, emotions are shaped by rules of conduct of society's expectations. I think I've already talked about that. Okay, that's fine. Feelings of embarrassment. I'm sure some of you, just like me, sometimes go through those episodes of embarrassment. I think if you watch the first part of this topic, I did talk about the incident at the fun fair where my daughter made a scene, and then my husband, his friend, and another guy had to carry her out of the fun fair. Everybody stopped and stared, and I'm like trying to bury my head in the sand, because like she was screaming so loud. It was just so uncomfortable for everyone, and I was not, it's something that made me not go back to a fun fair. So we don't go back to fun fairs, because I'm so afraid. You see, now I have that fear that she may do that same thing again, and how will we manage that? We wouldn't want to go through that horrible experience again. So sometimes we have a fun fair. We live very near to a park, and every holiday a fun fair comes and sets up. So every time we're driving past, we won't even go into the fun fair. It's so sad. But these are some of the realities when you have a child who has certain behaviors because of autism. Okay, so the feelings of embarrassment. I'm going to read a quote. He says this guy Sarah Ryan says that the strength of embarrassment is of fundamental social and moral significance, and is closely related to shame. Yes, that's true. Yeah, sometimes it feels like you're being shamed, or you feel ashamed, basically. And I think these are some of the things as parents we try to manage. What is the best way to manage those things? Well, I am going through those experiences, and obviously I'm still learning. I know my daughter is 17 years old, but every time you always have to learn, because with autism, sometimes their behavior changes as they grow older. A behavior that she may have at one stage of her life can phase out, and then she goes into another behavior, and that fades out, and then a new behavior. So that's what I've noticed when it comes to children with autism. There's always like a pattern of change. There's one behavior, then that goes, and then another one comes, and then it goes, and another one comes, and it goes. It's like that with my daughter. Right. So in conclusion, I just want to say that as parents of autistic kids, we have to change the world. We have to change the rules of society, of how to behave in public. We have to shape the world so that our children will be able to fit in, or to have their space within this world. It should be suitable for our children, where they can thrive, not hide, or not be hidden away, and not be a subject of shame. Our children should not be a subject of shame. And we also must refuse the labels of shame, the labels that we're bad parents, we're incompetent parents. We are parents of children who are different, and that's it. Our children are just different. They may have social and communication disorders, but they still have the right to enjoy this world just like anybody else. And yeah, okay, so what else is there? I'm just checking if there's anything else I want. Yeah, I did I did send a question to ask for your responses. The question where I asked, what challenges do you face or experience when taking your autistic child into a public place? I had one response from, I'll obviously keep the name anonymous. She says to me, keeping them safe. She says, my son can have an outburst of energy and just decide he's going to run into the traffic. He can't walk for very long because of his leg, and so he needs a buggy for being carried. So he needs a buggy or being carried. So that's just one response I got. Okay, so there is a, for those of you who like to read, right? I know when I talk about journals, research and stuff like that, some people are put off. But I know that there are the others who don't mind reading some of these papers. I mean, some of them are really, really good. There is one by a woman called Sarah Ryan. I don't know if I put that on the list as well. If I didn't, I will go back and check and then put it. But I'll put that. But I just want to recommend you to read the chapter sorry, 1 second. Number 6. Sorry, 1 second. Yeah, on the part 6 of her paper. Part 6 of her paper is looking at the findings. So you'll find there's parents. These are like direct quotes from the parents, direct feelings when the parents are talking about their experiences, and it's quite touching. It's really, really touching. So I don't want to take too long because already I think I've gone past the time I wanted to. So, right. So you can actually read part 6, and then it's looking at how some of the parents' experiences and some of the things that they go through whenever it involves taking your children out. I'll just read one. I promise I won't be long. This one says, just a simple thing like going into the shop and buying a pint of milk can present itself to be a big issue, and that gets you down quite often. You see, and her son is 11 years old. So there's a number of parents talking about their experiences, like just going out, just taking my child out, just to go even to the shop, to the park, to the mall, this is what I have to go through. So it'll be interesting you can just read the findings of the different parents, and I'll make sure I put to put it on there, so you'll be able to find that paper. It's free, so you don't have to pay for that one. So I think I'm going to stop here. And yeah, I'm not going to go into too much. I think that's fine for today. That should be good. So yes, I want to thank you. I don't know, does anyone want to join in quickly, or are you happy, where we are? And I'll make sure that I use my laptop so that I don't have to put the video on the side. It's because the landscape when I'm posting onto YouTube, so the videos are full on the screen instead of with that the gaps. All right, so I hope this is helping. I hope this is useful information, and that we can spread awareness everywhere, in Zimbabwe, in Africa, and everywhere else. And I just want to say, enjoy the rest of your day, and I'm going to go now, and take care All right. Thank you so much. Thank you. Okay. Bye-bye. Bye-bye.